Gravekeepers hold a special place for me. The first Verona Guardian booster I opened, I pulled Gravekeepers cheap, and as a kid, always found their aesthetic really cool. And even though archetypes weren't too cohesive until around 2008, Gravekeepers by my estimation are the first real archetype of the game. You can argue for things like Harpies and Toons, but the former really just had Harpy, Lady, Egotist, and Sisters, whereas Toons only had Toon World and a bunch of monsters with no cohesion whatsoever. Gravekeepers are the first to truly tie together cards wherein they get benefits from each other and have a defined playstyle. The premise of the Gravekeepers is pretty self-explanatory. They keep the grave. You have the field spell Necro Valley, which perhaps holds the record for most errata card. In its current iteration, it prevents cards from being moved from the grave while also granting all Gravekeepers a whopping 500 attack and defense. Then the rest of the lineup has effects that either operate off of Necro Valley or other Gravekeepers. The deck is definitely a slow-paced control deck in every iteration it has had since its inception. Let's take a closer look at the support. Gravekeepers first came out in 2003 in Verona Guardian during a time in which archetypes weren't the bread and butter of Yu-Gi-Oh! So while they had powerful cards like Necro Valley, Royal Tribute, and Gravekeeper Spy, there wasn't enough here to combat the more powerful strategies around this time like Chaos, Monarchs, and then later on Dad. However, Konami paid homage to the game's ancient Egyptian roots by giving the Gravekeepers a boost in 2010 with the release of cards like Recruiter, Descendant, and Stel, transforming the deck into a consistent control deck that could pick apart the opponent's resources while reliably generating its own advantage. To give you an idea of just how powerful this deck was, Legendary 6 Samurai came out in early 2011 and won the one YCS where Gateway of the 6 was at 3, a card still limited to this day. The deck it beat in the finals of that YCS? Gravekeepers. The next wave of support came in 2014 with standout control cards like Hidden Temples, which floodgates all special summons of non-Gravekeepers, and the Omni-Negate Countertrap Imperial Tombs. In 2018, the deck branched out into the extra deck with a fusion component including Spiritualist and Supernaturalist, as well as a strong Reviver and Headman, and a Rhoda and Necro Valley Throne. And then the deck picked up a couple of more cards in 2022 and 2023 with Gravekeeper's Trap, another Searcher, and Inscription, a block against certain graveyard plays. All in all, the deck has maintained its core premise of controlling the game state by virtue of locking down the graveyard and other general stun mechanics. And what I find more fascinating than anything else is the incredible simplicity of the deck. If you look at the level 4 or lower monsters, all of them have just one effect, except Ambusher, and even his effects are a bit hand in hand. By the same token, this simplicity is also why the deck can't compete, because the monsters in the best decks tend to do 2 to 3 different things. I don't envision Gravekeepers would all of a sudden become a combo heavy deck, but if Konami did craft more support for them, creating a more robust monster lineup would be the place to start, and maybe it will look a little something like this. First up is Gravekeeper's Protector, who you can special summon from hand by sending a Royal Tribute from your hand or deck to the grave, and if you do, neither player can activate monster effects from the hand until the end of the next turn. Second effect is when he's normal or special summoned, you can target one set monster on the field, flip it face up, and if it's a Gravekeeper, you can add one Necro Valley card from your deck to your hand. So this does a lot for the deck. That first effect gives you a pseudo Royal Tribute where you're not discarding monsters from your opponent's hand, but you're at least shutting them off from using hand traps and other things that they could activate from the hand, though bear in mind that this impacts any hand traps you're running as well, such as your typical hand traps and even cards like Commanded. And then that second effect is to give the deck some speed and really leverage the powerful flip effects the deck has, namely Spy, which is otherwise far too slow that modern Gravekeepers don't even run her. This gives you a reason to bring her back. Next up is Gravekeeper's Ally, inherent special summon from hand if Necro Valley is on field, and so since this isn't an activated effect, you can still use it after having used Protector. If normal or special summon, you can target one face-up monster on the field and flip it to face-down defense, and then you can set one Gravekeeper spell trap from your deck and it can be activated this turn. So kind of like the opposite of Protector, wherein instead of flipping things up, it flips things down, and instead of grabbing you a Necro Valley card, you get a Gravekeeper spell trap card. Last main deck monster is Gravekeeper Scribe, which is a new flip monster to the arsenal and grants you a negate of cards on the field up to the number of Gravekeeper's monsters you have on board, and this effect can't be responded to by your opponent if Necro Valley is on the field. Second effect is when it hits the grave that turn, you can normal summon one Gravekeeper's monster in addition to your normal summoner set, or flip summon one monster the same turn it was set, summoned, or flipped face down. Another mechanism to speed up a deck that otherwise lacks summoning power. Jumping into the extra deck, here's a new Fusion Gravekeeper's Master. Materials are 2 Gravekeeper's monsters that can be normal summoned. If Fusion summon, target cards in your opponent's grave up to the number of Gravekeepers with different names in your grave and banish those targets. Then, for every 3 cards banished this way, you can send 1 card on the field to the grave. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled, you can target one Gravekeeper's or Necro Valley spell trap in your grave and set it. These effects are unaffected by Necro Valley. I think this is a good foil to Supernaturalist, who gives your Necro Valley protection and then, albeit slowly, sets up your board with that end phase search. Master instead is controlling your opponent's board, while also netting you back those pivotal spells and traps of which you may typically only run one copy of. And then finally, we have a Link 2 Gravekeeper's Vizier, comprised of 2 Gravekeepers with levels, can't be used as fusion material. During your main phase, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster using at least 1 monster this card points to, as well as materials from your hand or field, and if Necro Valley is on the field, you can also use 1 Gravekeeper's monster from your deck. Second effect is a quick effect whereby you can set or activate 1 Necro Valley or Gravekeeper spell or trap from your hand, which pairs nicely with Supernaturalist to make use of the card you search in the end phase, while also being able to sneak a Floodgate or Necro Valley on your opponent's turn. The spell is Necro Valley Tribe, a quick play where you target a Gravekeeper you control, send it to the grave, and if you do, special summon 1 level 4 or lower Gravekeeper monster from your deck in face up or face down defense. If this card is sent to the grave and there is no field spell in your field zone, the field is treated as Necro Valley until the end of the next turn. Another card for much needed speed, an extender, and even helping you get around anything that might threaten your Gravekeeper and being able to trade it in for what you do need. As for the trap, we have Gravekeeper's Secret, which can be activated from hand if Necro Valley is on the field. Target 1 set Gravekeeper's monster you control, flip it up, then special summon 1 Gravekeeper's monster from your deck with the same level but different name as the flip monster. Grave effect, which ignores Necro Valley's restriction. You can banish it from the grave to fusion summon using Gravekeeper's monsters you control for a Gravekeeper's fusion monster, giving you the option to go into the Disruptive Master during your opponent's turn. I'll start off the demonstration with a 1.5 card combo where all you need is to start off with Ally. You can normal summon her. On summon, you can activate her effect to flip down a monster into face down defense position. Then you can set 1 Gravekeeper spell trap directly from your deck. It can be activated this turn. So we'll flip her and we will grab Gravekeeper's trap from our deck and set it. And we can activate it immediately that turn to use its effect to pitch a card, which is where that half card combo comes into play. To pitch it to add a Gravekeeper's monster from deck to hand, we will go grab the Protector. Protector can be special summoned from the hand by using its effect to send Royal Tribute from deck to grave. So we'll do that, and that'll block off any more monsters from being activated from the hand. And then when he's summoned, he can flip a monster face up, and if it is a Gravekeeper's monster, we can add a Necro Valley card from deck to hand. Then we will grab the Necro Valley Tribe. Use Necro Valley Tribe to target a Gravekeeper's monster we control, send it to the grave to special summon a Gravekeeper's monster that is level 4 or lower from our deck in face up or face down defense. We will grab the Headman. And then we'll activate the effect of Necro Valley Tribe. Since it hit the grave, Chain Link 1, the field is now treated as Necro Valley until the end of the next turn since we don't have a field spell in our field zone. And Chain Link 2, Headman, since it was summoned, we can target a Gravekeeper's level 4 Gravekeeper's monster in our grave, special summon in attack or face down defense where we bring out the Protector in attack mode. Link summon using Protector and Headman to go into the Vizier. And the Vizier can fusion summon using 1 monster that it points to as material, and then any other materials from our hand and or field. And you might be thinking, well, you don't have any other materials in your hand or field. But that's where the rest of his effect comes in play. If Necro Valley is on field, you can also use 1 Gravekeeper's monster from your deck as material. But you might be thinking, well, you don't have Necro Valley on your field. But that's exactly where that effect of Necro Valley Tribe comes into play, where the field is being treated as Necro Valley. This is an effect that I pulled from Gravekeeper's Priestess. It's just a card that Gravekeeper decks have never really used, but I thought it was a very clever effect to access a lot of these effects that require having Necro Valley on board. And this is going to come into play not just with the effect of Vizier, but it's going to come into play with another combo that I'll show here shortly. So this allows you to use a monster from your deck, Gravekeeper's monster from your deck. We will send the Spiritualist, and since it points to Ally, we can use Ally to bring out the Supernaturalist. Activate the effect of Supernaturalist to get the end phase search of a Gravekeeper's monster or Necro Valley card, so we'll do exactly that. We will grab the Hidden Temples of Necro Valley, and then use the Vizier's effect, quick effect, where we can set or activate a Gravekeeper's or Necro Valley spell trap from our hand. The activation timing must be correct, which it is, and we can pass over to our opponent. So this is where, again, this effect of treating the Necro Valley, the field as Necro Valley until the end of the turn comes into play, because ordinarily Hidden Temples requires you to have a Gravekeeper's monster and Necro Valley on the field. Well, we have those Gravekeeper's monsters, but we don't have Necro Valley in our field zone, but we do have the field being treated as Necro Valley thanks to Tribe. And so essentially Hidden Temples will block off special summoning of non-Gravekeeper's monsters until the end of our opponent's turn, because that's when the field will stop being treated as Necro Valley and it'll go to the grave. It is actually a pretty nifty combo, because if you wanted to on your next turn, you can then go into your own non-Gravekeeper special summon plays, but also this card is just so good against so many decks that if you can get it to a place where you can get it on the field permanently, it's usually going to win you a lot of games by itself. So that's a 1.5 card combo. Let's go through a 2 card combo now. The 2 card combo involves having Spy and Protector. We'll start off by setting the Spy. Use Protector's effect to special summon itself from hand by sending Royal Tribute from deck to grave. Block off any hand traps until the end of our opponent's next turn. Use Protector's effect on summon to flip a monster face up, and if it is a Gravekeeper's monster, we add a Necro Valley card from deck to hand. We will grab Necro Valley itself, and then Spy's effect, since it was flipped, will activate to special summon a Gravekeeper's monster with 1500 less attack from our deck. We will grab the Recruiter. We will use Protector and Recruiter to bring out the Vizier, and then Recruiter's effect will activate, allowing us to search out a Gravekeeper's monster with 1500 or less defense from our deck. We will grab the Ally. Activate Necro Valley, and since the Necro Valley is on the field, we can now use a Gravekeeper's monster from our deck as material for Vizier's effect, as well as the monster that it points to, in this case Spy. So let's do that and send the Scribe to the grave to bring out the Supernaturalist. And then since Scribe hit the grave, we can use its effect. This turn, we can normal summon a Gravekeeper's monster in addition to our normal summon or set, or flip summon one Gravekeeper's monster at the same turn, and it will set, summon, or flip face down, only getting that effect once per turn. So we can special summon Gravekeeper's Ally from here, since it is since we have Necro Valley on the board, and then use her effect to set itself face down to set a Gravekeeper's spell trap directly from our deck. Doesn't really matter which one you grab. I'll just grab Stell, for example. And then we can use Stell to set up our plays for our next turn by, for example, bringing back Protector and Spy. And we could essentially just redo the turn that we did if our field somehow was wiped out, or go into some other combo, such as going into the Master Fusion play. And then if we wanted to, we can also normal summon or normal summon a Gravekeeper's monster. So we could, for example, bring out Protector again. Wouldn't really help too much. You could also just flip summon that ally if you so chose, because we have that extra flip summon available to us. Activate the effect of Supernaturalist, and this will end up with the same way that we end off with the first combo, except instead we will now have the Necro Valley field spell itself on board, such that when we do use Vizier's effect to activate the hidden temples that we just searched out with Supernaturalist, this will actually stay on board through the end of our opponent's next turn and beyond, because it's not just a temporary Necro Valley, but the actual Necro Valley that's on board, and now we have that very powerful lock against our opponent. So that is a quick demonstration of some of the new combos available with this custom support for the Gravekeeper's deck. So that does it for the Gravekeeper support. Hope you enjoyed this refresh of a classic archetype, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe, because in 2 weeks, we're gonna dig real deep.